Добрий день, я від
Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us both in this studio and online. My name is Olga Atamanova, and Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation today. It's day 349 of the full-scale invasion of the Russian aggression in our land, and now we will be talking about the situation in Odesa region. Joining us online is Serhii Bratchuk, the head of the public council with the Odesa regional State Administration. Mr. Serhii, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Glory to the heroes, glory to the armed forces, glory to the heroes, glory to Ukraine. Mr. Serhii, the last time we met, it was after the massive missile strike inflicted by the occupiers, and you were talking back then that the situation with the power infrastructure in Odesa region is quite complicated, that you have light only 1 or 2 hours per day. Did that situation change as of today? Well, really, if we talk about our energy front for Odesa, this is the top priority matter on the agenda. I want to remind you that starting from February 2022, the strikes inflicted on the power infrastructure facilities of Odesa were incessant, and the works are going on 24/7 on mitigation of the aftermath. And I want to remind you that the last attack, the last strike, which happened on the 26th of January, resulted in the destruction of the power infrastructure facilities. Our power technicians tried to mitigate the aftermath of the strike, and there were 2 emergencies which happened recently, which grew into significant emergencies, which are currently being mitigated by Ukrenergo. So these are the conditions that Odesa ended up in. About 550 household consumers are without power supply for the time being. We re-established the power supply for the half of the consumers, and the situation is getting better for the residents of Odesa and part of Odesa region. We're not talking about the stabilization schedules now. Now we have only emergency shutdowns in place. There was a resolution taken on the level of the central government, regional government, and military administration of Odesa region to transfer the critical infrastructure to alternative power sources. I mean the generators. We have to emphasize that we were able to maintain the permanent power, water, and heat supply for the critical infrastructure without breakdowns. It is remaining on the normal level. And talking about the municipal transport, it's out of operation for a couple of days in a row, but I hope that we will be able to reestablish its operation within a couple of days. So talking about the stabilization power shutdown schedules, after the resolution takes effect about the transition to the alternative power sources, we will be able to liberate a number of capacities so we may supply the electric power to the household consumers. And only then I hope that this schedule, when the lights are on for 2 hours and 8 hours it's off, the situation will change to the positive. It will be more comfortable. It will be better to provide more comfortable life for the residents of Odesa and Odesa region. Now we're saying about big gaps, big intermissions about between those periods when the light is on. Sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 8-10 hours. So I want to thank the residents of Odesa and Odesa region for their understanding that they express, for their resilience and their civil conscience. And talking about the generators, the relevant resolution was taken during the meeting headed by the Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. The generators are coming from DTEC and State Emergency Service. Also, part of the need is covered by our regional government. So those generators will be the power source for the critical infrastructure, and I want to express the gratitude from the residents of Odesa region and from military administration to all those regions of Ukraine who extended the helping hand to us, and we have a lot of generators coming from different regions of Ukraine for the time being. And now the situation that we have doesn't allow us to maintain the education process for our students even online. There is no education process in Odesa region, and it will take probably weeks to resume it. However, the kindergartens starting from Wednesday, from tomorrow, they will be able to receive the small kids because they were added to the network of critical infrastructure. So this is the situation we're having now, and again I want to appreciate all the support of those who got involved in mitigation of the consequences of the strikes. Do we understand it right that the school students were sent to so-called temporary recess? Yes, I call them the technological vacation, because the lack of electric power doesn't allow us to have the online classes. So until the end of this week, the students will be on holidays. The situation Odesa ended up in unfortunately forces you to take those difficult decisions. Maybe there are more decisions that were taken in this regard due to this situation. For example, as to the option for the people to get their gadgets recharged, do you have any more resilience stations deployed now that we understand that the large number of population is without access to electric power? Well, yes, of course, on the 4th of February we deployed more than 150 resilience stations more, specifically 164. Some of them operate 24/7, and the total number of such stations in Odesa exceeds 300, and they work according to specific schedule. For example, within the last week there were more than 6,000 residents of Odesa who used the services of such resilience stations. We're talking about the recharging of the gadgets for internet services, and we also serve hot drinks there. The network is operating properly, and in other communities of Odesa region the resilience stations are open for visiting. They're fully equipped with internet. There are additional Starlink terminals provided by the military administration. However, in territorial communities the number of people is way less than in the city, because I want to mention that the situation in the communities is better than in Odesa city and the region of Odesa. So the resilience stations, they fulfill their function and they fully justify their existence. We have questions on the floor. Good afternoon, Irina Mamchur, Ukrinform. Do we understand it correct that to provide the critical infrastructure of the city you need 100 generators, as you mentioned? My question is as follows: how many generators, if not in absolute figures, maybe in percentages, you already received? how much do you have for ensuring the proper operation of the critical infrastructure, and how many time do you need to get them connected, to get them commissioned, and will there be critical, and will the critical infrastructure of the city remain working using generators after the repair works are fulfilled, or will we feed the critical infrastructure from the general grid? So again, the percentage, how many time will it take to get them commissioned, and will they be reconnected to the general grid? Well, thank you for your question. I would like to emphasize, well, starting from the end of your question, not all of the decisions that we're taking in the operational headquarters can be communicated to the public, and as to the generators which have to feed the critical infrastructure facilities, I'm talking about the water supply, water distribution, and medical facilities, and also we already installed those generators, and in percentage it's about 40% of those generators that have that are incoming to Odesa and Odesa region. As to the what's gonna happen then, it's not a forecast, it's our plan. By the end of the week we want to get all the critical infrastructure connected to the generators by the end of the week, but if we make it earlier we will be just more satisfied and the happier will be our citizens. So the process of installation of those generators is about 40% complete. Okay, so in continuation of your comment, if there is a plan to get them connected by the end of the week, at least something that is necessary for operation of critical infrastructure. So starting from Monday, the residents of Odesa may have some hope for reestablishment of normal power supply according to the emergency or stabilization, rolling power shutdowns. Well, I think that by the end of the week, the residents of Odesa will feel some improvement. I don't want to run way ahead because we understand that there is a risk of the missile strikes by the enemy. For example, now we know that the missile carriers are in the basin of the Black Sea, and we understand that the terroristic tactics of Russian Federation is in hitting the critical infrastructure facilities and the civil residential buildings. So I hope we will cope with those matters by the end of this week. Okay, Mr. Serhii, maybe thank you for your answer. Maybe last question about the operation of grain initiative. Do you have any news from that front? Unfortunately, well, the grain initiative works. Unfortunately, the volumes are lower than the last month. Now the resolution is taken across the ministries to have summaries, to summarize the information by the end of the week. So we will have better information by the end of this week. The problems are still the same. It's the action of the Russia. They block the passage of vessels through Bosphorus, or either on the way to the ports or from the ports. So it may be about 100 vessels per day, and given the situation which unfortunately happened in Turkey recently, it will influence the situation with the grain initiative. But again, the operation schedules are quite flexible in terms of grain initiative, so we will hope the situation will improve. Mr. Serhii, thank you for joining our broadcast. I'm reminding you, joining us was Serhii Bratchuk, the spokesperson of the military governor of Odesa region. Our team is preparing the schedule for tomorrow, so bear with us. Trust in our armed forces, and glory to Ukraine.